Hello, I'm John Shearhart, for those of you that don't know me. And what I'm doing here today is explaining the process of designing a new pocket. We did this for our client for what we're calling a contemporary flush mount pocket, and we may never ever use this again. And it's turned out to be a lot longer process than we had thought, but I think the end results are really what matters, and it does look great. So anyway, what we have to do is first start with our 3D SolidWorks CAD, and start with a concept that we have to creatively come up with, how we're going to do it, put it into paper, as it were, in this case digital bits and bytes. And because a pool table has very specific dimensions and requirements, and this one, has got everything a little bit tighter, we have to double check and triple check our measurements, make sure that they're fitting. And when I first started, I thought, yeah, it takes me X number of hours to do this drawing and get this part done. The one thing I failed to overlook was that once I have that done, I then have to take it, and I don't know if it's showing you well enough, but then I have to take it and fit it into, and it doesn't want to show you that because I have that open. I have to fit it into the actual part, and so that turns into the aluminum part. And we, like I mentioned, we have to check these measurements, double check, make sure we have our profiles right. Anyway, so then we have to go and put it into the rail. And again, I'm not sure if you're seeing this, I can show you drawings. And then all of these parts, so we have a rail here and a rail here, and the way these were drawn, we have to go into each of those individual parts and redraw, transforming the part of that metal into our other drawing. And so in fact that ends up not just doing it once, but 3 times that we end up doing these drawings, checking, triple checking. And just show you here too, and despite the fact that this is CAD computer with a lot of precision, it is actually still hard to get everything lined up properly. As you can see here, even though we've done this and redone it, there are still some elements that are not right, and these are fractions of an inch, but the look is not what it should be. And we did want to have a good look so that we know that visually it's looking the way we want it, as much as we want to make sure that the part's going to fit the way it's supposed to. One thing I also had to do in here, which I had actually never done before, was, and again, it was purely for looks, so that on the computer screen and on the pictures that we provide for you, that they are visible. And so this surface, which was new for me to use, I've never needed it. It took me a little bit of time figuring out how to get that to function properly, and for the measurements to be right, so that it's fitting the way. And it was noticed in the drawing that these ends weren't the look we wanted. It probably might have taken me a few more hours just to close that off, and I didn't think that that was actually necessary. It'd be better for me to spend my time in the shop getting it to actually function, which I'll show you in a few minutes. So anyway, that's what it was. So that's the corner pocket, and I calculated roughly, or guesstimated how long that would take to do that. And again, I had to do it 3 times in each of the different parts. And then we also needed to do our corner, and then we needed our side. And the dimensions are similar, but they're different. So basically it ended up being like 5 or 6 times a little more work than I had originally anticipated. But as you can see, we've got them. There were some more processes that were not known about. For example, when I take that drawing, I send that drawing to the machine shop, they then have to move it into another program. There are elements that they don't need, for example, this surface. They actually cannot have that. That would complicates it, so they have to remove that. Some of the there's holes that they need that I know nothing about to hold the part, so they have to figure that out so that you don't get a vibration and wreck their $250,000 machine. And anyway, so they've calculate those things, and then they actually have to take this drawing that we have here. Let me just remove that if you're seeing this. They have to take this drawing and they have to move it into what's called the CAM drawing. I don't know what that is. I don't work with that. But then they have to go in and figure out how the machine is going to remove the material in a timely fashion without wrecking their machine. So it was a little bit more than what we thought, but you know, it is done. It's a beautiful part and it's fitting well. But there were a few other things, and I'll go downstairs and show you with the leather what was involved in getting the leather itself to fit to these parts once we had them done. Just like to mention too that once we had the first part made, and that's just making one part. So we've got a $250,000, well, I think he got it cheap. It's a used machine, so I think he's got 100,000 in that machine. Anyway, it had to sit while I'm playing around for 3 or 4 days, you know, making sure that, well, pardon me, I'm not playing while I'm working to get the leather to fit on here the way we want it. The good news is that he's a teacher, and so he's busy during the days teaching, and he doesn't use that machine all the time. So we were fortunate that that machine was able to sit waiting for me to finalize whether things were working properly. But let me take you downstairs and to show you a little bit of what we had to do with the leather and the jigs that we had to make. I had drawn some jigs in aluminum, but time-wise it just was not going to work. It was more convenient for me to do it the old-fashioned way with wood. It's the element that I work in, and if there's mistakes made, it is a little bit easier to adjust, but it is time-consuming. Anyway, I'll go down and show you those.